thing. So this morning, the last session before my 1 month winter retreat, I'd like to speak about, bringing the sequence on the Noble Eightfold Path, bringing that to an end today with a summary. And, the number one information about the Noble Eightfold Path is that it is based on natural law, and it doesn't really, satisfy the ego, but it heals the ego into wholeness. Because it's a path, which goes towards increasing openness of the heart mind. In Buddhism, we speak about the heart mind, citta, and my name, Santa Citta, means peaceful heart mind. And the mind is not considered to be here, but the mind is here. And this is the brain, and the brain is considered, in the Buddha's dispensation to be just like an organ, like the stomach or the lungs or the liver, an organ which can do things. In our case, the brain is doing thinking and processing, but it's not considered to be that which knows. It's not considered the seat of awareness. That is here in the heart and throughout the whole being, which is actually limitless. So I wanted to bring to you today the definition of the word holy, because I find that very interesting in regards to saying, that the Noble Eightfold Path heals us into wholeness. And the word holy is, probably because in the etymological dictionary, it said it's not possible to really determine where it's originally coming from, but probably was along the lines of that which must be preserved whole or intact, that which cannot be transgressed or violated. That is what is considered whole. And it's connected with the Old English word hal or hell, H-A-L, which we can find in health, or the Old German word Heil, which means something like health, happiness, or good luck. So that which must be preserved whole or intact. And somehow, the citta is always whole and intact, but it's covered over, by all of these different patterns of thinking and speaking, relating. And then through the practice inside of the Noble Eightfold Path, we start to step back. We start to step outside of those patterns and we become aware of them. It's like, we're becoming aware that we are looking through glass which is broken, which has all kinds of filters. And once we become aware of those filters, that, can be a very uncomfortable process, to really stay steady with that unfolding and not, go under it. But it's something which can be done because of the scaffolding of the teaching. And the Buddha's Noble Eightfold Path is one kind of scaffolding, which is very pragmatic because of the very sophisticated, meditation teachings which the Buddha has left for us. And, the teaching stems from Iron Age India, and it has been developed inside of that culture. And it's, really good to be aware of that as we are receiving the teaching and using it. It hasn't, come about in a vacuum. But once we know, where it's coming from, we can make that part and parcel of how we are picking up the teaching. And, it has been compared to an ancient path which has been rediscovered by the Buddha. So it wasn't the Buddha's invention, but he rediscovered it. And there's a beautiful definition of that in the scriptures, which I'd like to read to you today. It is in the Samyutta Nikaya, the connected discourses, and it's called the city. So please, settle in and just allow that to wash over you. It's written in the old language, And it's translated by Venerable Bodhi. The city. Suppose, monastics, a person wandering through a forest would see an ancient path, an ancient road traveled upon by people in the past. They would follow it and see an ancient city, an ancient capital that had been inhabited by people in the past, with parks, groves, ponds, and ramparts, a delightful place. Then the person would inform the king or a royal minister, Sire, know that while wandering through the forest, I saw an ancient path, an ancient road traveled upon by people in the past. I followed it and saw an ancient city, an ancient capital that had been inhabited by people in the past, with parks, groves, ponds, and ramparts, a delightful place. Renovate that city, sire. Then the king or the royal minister would renovate the city, and sometime later, that city would become successful and prosperous, well populated, filled with people, attained to growth and expansion. So, two monastics, I saw the ancient path, the ancient road traveled by the perfectly enlightened ones of the past. And what is that ancient path, that ancient road? It is just this noble eightfold path that is right or wise view, intention, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, and stability. I followed that path, and by doing so, I have directly known suffering, its origin, its cessation, and the way leading to its cessation. Having directly known them, I have explained them to the bhikkhus, the bhikkhunis, the male followers, and the female followers. This holy life, monastics, has become successful and prosperous, extended, popular, widespread, well proclaimed among the devas and humans. Devas are the celestial beings. So that's that, scriptural way of bringing it home that this is something which exists since a very, very long time. It has been, picked up by the Buddhas who were before Gautama Buddha. And it has, it can be laid open again, just like our own capacity, for awakening. It is there, but it's covered over. Like, the sun is covered over by the clouds. And then if we are becoming conscious of those clouds and see them for what they really are, that they are only clouds. They are impermanent. If we can do that through the scaffolding of the teaching, through the Noble Eightfold Path, then, those filters, those clouds are thinning out slowly but surely. And that's, what we can do. And because as human beings, we have this amazing ability to be able to step back in a balanced way and acknowledge what we are experiencing in the moment with a kind heart, with a kind awareness, and then we can make a choice. And this is something which we need to really become confident in through training ourselves. Like any other skill, driving a car, playing an instrument, we can't just do it if somebody shows it to us one time. We need to train ourselves in it, and then we slowly, become confident in it. And that's a process. And sometimes, we lose heart because we just don't have that confidence if what is experienced is really very, very, very painful. And I really know that from my own life. That's a reason why I took the monastic form, because I felt that that was really helpful, to not veer off too far. But actually, since I've taken the monastic form, it's still not an easy path. It's still not easy sometimes when, these old patterns are triggered, the old trauma, which is locked into the body somewhere, gets triggered, and then, create confusion and great suffering, can become, can become triggered, and then there's great discomfort. And the important then to hold steady with that and not go under. That's why we need this path. And, if we are looking at the evolution of consciousness or the evolution of life on this planet, when we are looking at it, we do that with consciousness. With consciousness, we're looking at, what it is to live and to have a body and so on and so forth. And the Buddha's teaching helps us to expand that consciousness through increasing capacity for awareness and mindfulness. In the beginning, it's all just about me, and survival when I'm very tiny, not even being aware that that we are not the same body as the body of our mother. And then the circle of awareness, gets bigger and bigger. And then usually it starts to stop at the cultural narrative. And with this practice, we want to step outside of that. And, that's what brings us all together here in these meetings, is that we all feel that calling, we want to step outside of the confinements of conventional reality because we see its shortcomings. And we want to have, the capacity to step out of the box and then, look at the box. And then for some time, we stay at that place and then we step out of that box again into a bigger box. And that's, the walls of the box always give way. And then there is a bigger space, consciousness expands. And then again and again, until there's no walls. That would be full awakening. And this is a process which we have the capacity to cultivate. And now, as we are standing on this evolutionary threshold, noticing that if we don't seriously, change our ways, how we live on this planet, we will go extinct as a species because we live beyond our means. And that's a very powerful recognition. And I think all of us who meet here, we are all on that threshold in some way or another. We all feel that urge to evolve. And that's a really great good fortune, even if it's confusing, and uncomfortable. Because, the hallmark of the Buddha's teaching is, how do I deal with this? How do I relate to this? It's all about relationship. So, for example, noticing the limitations of the narrative and that the narrative has to change, that's an experience, really. And what we need to do is to know how we are relating to that experience. The experience is always like secondary, but what is really within our reach is how we are relating to the experience. We can't single-handedly, change the narrative, the cultural narrative, but we can know that we are no longer fully lost in it, that we can see some of the limitations and that we even can sense, some of the potential which is outside of that narrative. And that's something to really notice in ourselves. And then relating to that with mindfulness and awareness within the scaffolding of the Noble Eightfold Path. So that is the training which we can do. which many have done before us. But till a short time ago, the transmission of Buddhism was a lot about, personal transformation, and it wasn't so much about, you know, a narrative or society and so on and so forth. And now it becomes more and more clear to us that we need to relate our own transformation also to the collective and to the epigenetic material. We have inherited the ancestral and collective trauma information, which is part and parcel of our heritage. So really, on the one hand, sensing that that brings up a lot of kind of maybe confusion and also a sense of no, I don't want to have to deal with all of that. And I think we don't have to deal with it like on a personal level, but we just need to notice our relationship to that information, which starts to really, I think, press in on us, all of the unfinished business. We can see, what's happening in the Middle East. We can see this is not like a recent occurrence, but we can see that has been building up over a very long time of things have not been attended to. And the same, with the climate crisis. Everything, which is hitting us has been built up for a very, very long time. Like, landfill having been stuffed away somewhere. And then at one point, there's no more space for that. It just doesn't go away. And I think that's something which becomes more clear now to more people. And that is, yeah, a sign of evolution. That's a sign of the expansion of consciousness, of stepping outside from the former box into a bigger box and looking at the confinements of the previous box and seeing we can't really go hiding in that box any longer. And that's scary on one level, but on the other level, it is also, this is how growth happens. There's always a stretch. And a stretch is experienced as discomfort. And that is often then, experienced as fear. And I can see that very much in my own experience. But then, not allowing that experience to take charge of us. That is the choice we do have. Not believing our thoughts, because what we usually believe is, I am on my own and I have to kind of deal with all of this. And this is not true. We are not on our own. And it's not like our sole responsibility. And I think this is the most kind of common assumption we fall into if we are triggered in this way. Regressing, in an earlier trauma, where we have been probably experiencing a sense of abandonment, because every one of us has had that at one point. Even we might have had a very great upbringing, but 100% attunement to an infant is probably impossible. So, to really being able to settle with that experience of helplessness and hopelessness, if there's so much being revealed to us, that is hard to work with, but it's also important to pay attention to the support we do have. We have the teaching. There's many different teachings out there. The Buddha's teaching is one amongst many, and it really works well. And then we have the health and the means, to come to this gathering on a Wednesday morning. That also means a lot that we can do that. We have Sangha. So it's really, I think it's so important to pay attention to what is already available in our life so that we even can come to that threshold and, and experience it consciously. So that brings in a sense of, I think, gratitude and a sense of buoyancy, which we really dearly need. Because buoyancy, opens up the mind and creates some space. Because that's what we need. Space is so important for digesting experience. And gratitude, even, if it doesn't come easy, but make that a practice to really pay attention to what is available rather than only paying attention to that which is difficult, which is a tendency we have. And it's even, an evolutionary skill we have. It's a survival skill. But in order, to grow beyond survival in the bodily sense of, becoming or like having a certain age, if we want to go beyond that, if we want to cultivate wisdom and compassion, not just survival, we need to expand our consciousness further than just surviving as a body for a certain amount of years. And that's, what the Noble Eightfold Path is all about. To expand consciousness beyond the immediate survival of the body. So now just coming back to the body itself now. Taking in our experience, the somatic experience of sitting here and meeting as a group and hearing these words. And noticing that life is already doing it. Life is already evolving. That's what it always has done. To really become conscious of that and that we can participate in that wisdom, in that intelligence more consciously, that's something, which is coming online now at this point in history for more and more people. As we are faced with this amazing complexity of so much unfinished business. And we're starting to realize the repetition compulsion of that. Not just on an individual level, but also on an ancestral and collective level. And, our own capacity to respond to that can be expanded if that's, what we feel called to do, for the benefit of future generations. And also, for the benefit of our own peace of mind. So awareness and mindfulness together with joy and gratitude, those two, they can really open up the path into increasing freedom from that repetition compulsion of the past. And then past becomes history. And history is a pool of learning. We can stand on that, but not, mindlessly repeating and repeating it. And, deepening the trauma patterns, the karma. And that's, what the Noble Eightfold Path as a scaffolding can help us is to cultivate this capacity for choice. And, this capacity for choice, by looking at our experience rather than losing ourselves in it, always results in letting go of a filter, which previously, we were under, and then it dissolves through us, seeing clearly the conditionality of that filter, like an old trauma, which we haven't had the capacity yet to metabolize. And then once it is metabolized, the filter is gone. And then, the next filter becomes conscious, and it's a graduated path. But the, central feature of that progression of insight is the seeing of impermanence. And then, the seeing of impermanence leads to letting go via, the washing away of these filters of craving until they were gone. Sensing the body on the cushion on the chair and the movement of the breathing process. And the aliveness of the body. And some, areas of the body might be less alive than others, but just noticing that. And with the out breath, we can just send down roots into the ground below our seat. Noticing that this body and this planet are one process. through eating and drinking, going to the bathroom, crying, sweating, and breathing. We are in constant exchange with the biosphere. We never ever cut the umbilical cord. And through this body, we are directly, fully networked in with the biosphere of the planet. And that's something we so easily forget. That's really important at this day and age to make a real strong connection with that truth. To pay the same attention to embodiment as we are paying to transcendence, bringing that teaching into the present moment where our culture seems to have lost the capacity for conscious embodiment more and more. And it has grave repercussions. And it seems, for us to really work with conscious embodiment, there's a sense of dis-ease and discomfort, which keeps us in the old patterns. But once we start, taking an interest in that, it opens up. There's a kind of a wordless transmission, a wordless communication, which starts to be established between our individual bodies and this much larger body of the biosphere, which is our true body. That it can give a sense of awe and possibility, because that body has a self-regulating intelligence which is operating since over 4 billion years. And we can actually participate in that intelligence if we choose to do that training. The training of again and again putting down those perceived limitations and stepping outside of that small box. And then, that is an opening towards this much vaster intelligence, which has nothing to do with the brain. The brain is good for, going to buy a ticket or something, but that is not what the brain does. The brain cannot embrace that vast mystery. And it's not supposed to. And the advanced mystery can speak to us in a wordless way, on a level of receptivity, which is more on a vibrational level. It's like the whole body listening, the whole body being an organ of listening, through the fact that it is built from the same elements as the biosphere is. There's this rapport possible. We have a direct line into that. As this kind of listening is happening, we can notice, the expansiveness of the mind, the chitta, the vibrancy of that expanse, the aliveness. The feeling that amazing rapport, between the body as a biocomputer, we have inherited from our ancestors, and the richness, of the aliveness we can connect with through the body. Which is, much more than just it's not a personal body. So we are part of this whole lineage of, life, how it has evolved on this planet since a very long time, been handed down from generation to generation. Like a river. And really sensing that vibrancy. And the fact that this is not going to stop here. There's more innovation, more creativity waiting to be embodied. As we are standing on this threshold, confronted with so much unfinished business. So expanding consciousness beyond that. We're making space for future potential to emerge. And through sensing into that vibrancy, that's a way of like opening to this information, to become available to through us in our particular unique way. We all have different gifts, different talents, and we all can tune in a different way to this wordless vibrancy and resonating, attuning to that. And making ourselves available. But simply, I'm listening, I'm here, and, as a community, inviting that creativity to speak through us individually and collectively. This is, what evolution looks like, really. By seeing the need and sensing that urge in ourselves, that urge to evolve. And, using this ancient teaching as a anchor to keep us in the middle, to not falling for extremes of permanence. And keeping in the middle of the flow, being carried by that flow and swimming in the way we can swim. So to align with the highest potential we can embody in service, for those who come after us, and in service of our own growth. That belongs together. To be more informed by innovation and creativity and not stuck in repeating the past and repeating the past and repeating the past. Just because it has worked, in the past, it doesn't mean it's appropriate for what's happening now. And the birthplace of that skill is in the present moment. by seeing, is there clinging or is there an openness? Are we listening, with our full being, our body and our mind to this vibrancy of that which is not yet manifest? That is the essence of impermanence, really. To see, that even the narrative within which we are practicing is impermanent. Even, the packaging in which the teaching has been handed down to us is impermanent. It needs to be also looked at. Then I'm inviting the blessings of our ancestors and of the future generations so that we can live up to this urge to evolve, to remember it, when we feel really fearful and hopeless. And that's, the reason why we have these meetings, I think, to encourage each other by showing up and reflecting back that urge to evolve, which brings us here. Not just in order to get away from something, but much more in order to see and understand. And expand and grow. For our own benefit and for the benefit of all sentient beings. And before I'm ending the meditation in a few minutes, I just like to end with the Noble Eightfold Path mantra. I chant it 3 times. Just allow it to rain down on you. Samma ditti, samma sankappa, samma vaca, samma kammanta, samma achiva, samma vayama, samma sati, samma samadhi. Samma ditti, samma sankappa, samma vaca, samma kammanta, samma achiva, samma vayama, samma sati, samma samadhi. Samma ditti, samma sankappa, samma vaca, samma kammanta, samma achiva, samma vayama, samma sati, samma samadhi. And just, noticing the vibration, how easy we can sense, through that somatic bodily sense of tuning in. This is a very, very sophisticated way of receiving information. It's beyond language, but it has depths to it. At a time where the complexity is sheer overwhelming, we need to also develop different capacities of attunement. And how we can receive information, entering our form in this very different way, not just through the thinking mind. That's what's needed at this point to extend these capacities of ours by being able to communicate with different forms of intelligence, which are beyond the human intelligence and being tuning into the more than human world.